welcome to GameSack. This time around, we're talking about games that make the console look weak.
Yeah, we've already talked about, obviously, games that push hardware limits. We're going to take a look at the other side, games that
don't push the hardware limits. And not just average games, but games that just actively make the console look less powerful than it actually is. So just imagine that if these games were the only ones you had ever seen on the console, what would you think of the console?
Not much, probably.
So let's get to it.
This is Athena for the NES by SNK. There's absolutely nothing special going on here, and not once did I say, wow, that's cool, while playing this game. Athena herself is kind of tough to control. She can jump fairly high, but it's not easy to always get her to do what you want her to do. As you make your way through the level, you'll uncover armor that she'll wear, and also new weapons which will help you kill enemies much more quickly. Some weapons can destroy blocks, and others can't, so choose your weapon wisely. Actually, it's not that big of a deal as you find different weapons all the time. To me, this game just looks blah. The backgrounds are uninspired and the enemies are the same. The music is nothing compared to a well-composed NES soundtrack. Actually, it sounds like it belongs on a pre-NES console. The whole game feels that way. It's also ridiculously hard, so be prepared for a tough time. Like this right here. I'm fighting this boss on the first level. I land a few shots with my throwing swords and then I get hit and proceed to be juggled in the air until I die. And that was the best fight that I had with this boss. This game isn't worth your time. Here's Baby's Kids on the Super Nintendo by Radical Entertainment. You know, that name is very deceiving as they really haven't made any radical games ever. Anyway, if you're ready to play a very slow beat 'em up, then this game is for you. Your characters move so stinking slow that it's annoying. I know that the Super Nintendo doesn't have a fast processor, but come on, this is ridiculous. Your character has a punch, kick, and an uppercut move. If you do play this game, then don't waste your time using punches and kicks, as each enemy takes a minimum of 20 hits before they die. Just use the uppercut move, which you have to hold in his shoulder button plus the punch button. This is good as it kills enemies in 2 to 4 hits. Still, you miss a lot and the hit detection is way off. This is easily one of the ugliest games for the system. The graphical style is so unappealing, but hell, I really want to ride that roller coaster in the background. That thing looks badass! Sadly, at the speed that this game runs, a trip around the track would probably take 2 weeks. And adding to your misery, you get a soundtrack that makes you want to hit your Super Nintendo like an old record player because it sounds like it's constantly skipping. Yet, one more game that isn't worth your time. And finally, here's Ninja Gaiden Trilogy, also for the Super Nintendo. This one should be quite obvious why it's in this episode. Tecmo did next to nothing when putting this on the system. Graphically, the game looks almost identical to the NES games. Sure, there's no flicker here, but come on, what the hell, Tecmo? Apparently, they didn't see what Nintendo had already done years prior with Super Mario All-Stars. They even removed some of the parallax scrolling here and there to make sure that the Super Nintendo looks weaker than the NES itself. Jeez! Could you just imagine how awesome this game pack would have been if they would have overhauled each game graphically? I'm drooling just thinking about it. The only thing that got a somewhat major change was the music. There's lots of the same tunes, but now they're all rearranged and have reverb. Yay! In all honesty, I do like what they did with the music, but nothing will beat the way that it sounded while playing on the NES. Is it nostalgia? Probably, but that's just the way it goes. The games still control fine and play almost the same as they did on the NES. And they're just as fun as they have always been. It's just a shame that Tecmo let a great opportunity go by skimping out on this release. If you haven't played this cart, then I would suggest you try it, but be prepared to pay out the nose for a copy. It's stupid expensive now, and I can't imagine the reason why.
This is the amazing Flicky on the Sega Genesis. This is actually based on one of Sega's lower-end arcade games. You play as Flicky, who happens to be a blue bird, and your goal is to grab all of the yellow chicks in the level and take them to the exit. But watch out, because these evil cats are running around. Oddly, these cats won't kill the chicks if they touch them, but if they do, then the chicks stop following you. And that means you're going to have to go back and pick them up again. If the cats or any other enemy touch you, however, it's instant death. The more chicks you have in tow when you get to the exit, the more points you'll get. And you're going to need them because the score is how you get extra lives. And there are no continues. Once every few stages, you'll play a bonus round where you need to collect all the chicks that have been bounced up into the air with your net. I do not like the controls in this game at all because Flicky has tons of momentum. Every level feels like it's an ice level. Some stages even seem to exacerbate this with bouncy walls. So all in all, I don't feel like I have very good control over Flicky. Still, this game is kind of fun, but I can't really play it for more than 15 minutes at a time before getting completely disinterested. And it really doesn't belong on the Genesis. To be honest, it looks like a low-budget Master System game. It has a very similar color palette to the Master System, and honestly, I'd expect it to be one of the lower memory card games. You've got no parallax scrolling, no sweet-ass scaling and rotation, no amazing voices, and there's not even any huge full-screen boss fights with amazing animation. It's like they didn't even try. Honestly, the most technically impressive aspect of Flicky is the music. Now, it's not great music or anything, but at least it's in stereo and it has a lot more fidelity than any Master System game could. Sega loves Flicky though, and they even put him or her in Sonic the Hedgehog to be saved. The New Zealand story, also for the Genesis, kind of reminds me a lot of Flicky, at least in the presentation. The graphics are actually a lot better, but still extremely simple. It's loosely based on the Taito arcade game, and it tells the accurate history of how New Zealand came to be. And if you know your New Zealand history, you know that a walrus kidnapped some Kiwis and you escaped, and now it's up to you to rescue them all. You can jump and shoot arrows. You can also capture enemy aircraft and float around the levels. Touch anything bad and you die immediately. The goal is to find the captured Kiwi in the level and touch it. It starts out easy, but it gets hard pretty damn fast. You can't shoot up and the enemies appear out of nowhere. The levels also get very long and quite complex. You can even go underwater, but keep an eye on your air meter as it empties really fast. It's not a horrible game, I guess. Honestly, I was really disappointed back when I rented the Japanese version in 1990. I was like, why aren't there a billion sprites on screen all moving around at the speed of light? The game makes the console appear pretty limited. The sound is a joke. Of course, it's in mono. Where's my sweet digitized drum samples with heavy bass and kick-ass rock and synth in stereo, all at a tempo of 10 million? Not here. Still, if you want a challenge, check it out. And what if you bought your $300 Sega CD peripheral and all you had to play was Teddy Boy Blues? That's right, the beloved arcade and Master System hit comes to the Sega CD. You play as Teddy Boy and you've got the blues. In order to combat your depression, you need to defeat all the enemies that the alarm clocks around the level produce. In order to get rid of them, you need to touch them. Just be sure that you shoot them before you touch them, otherwise you die. The levels are all pretty small and they loop in every direction. Despite it doing next to nothing with the hardware other than a little bit of parallax scrolling and CD audio, honestly, this is kind of a fun game. The stages change each and every round and the music is outstanding. There's also a bonus round where you get to play as Teddy Girl. This game is part of the Game no Kanzume Volume 2 or Sega Game Can 2. This is a collection of the old downloadable modem games that existed early in the Mega Drive's life. In fact, every game on here is pretty basic, and to be honest, a lot of the games are pretty bad. But I think Sega was smart to put these games in the compilation so they wouldn't be lost in the ether forever, and a lot of them got some pretty cool CD music. Even the Phantasy Star 2 text adventures are on here, in Japanese of course. Sega Game Can Volume 1 even has Flicky! Now, some of you may remember way back when I talked about Flicky a couple of minutes ago, and some of you actually probably don't remember. For those of you who don't remember, you're a bluebird and you have to collect yellow chicks. But this version has some CD music and it even lets you put your name in if you get a high score. This is definitely the definitive version of Flicky, but it's still Flicky. Still, in my opinion, the star of these compilations is absolutely Teddy Boy Blues on Volume 2.
This is Insector X for the Genesis, developed by Hop B and published by Sage's Creation, and it's loaded with 16-bit awesomeness! Yeah, right. As you can see, this is a horizontal shooter, and you play as Kite, the last one alive from the Insector tribe. It's up to you to save the humans from the Belzers, which are half insect and half robot. Not surprisingly, I had a tough time with this game at first. I'm not really a fan of shooters where your ship or character has a large hitbox. I mean, just look at the size of your guy and tell me that it's easy to avoid getting hit a lot. Of course, you have no life bar and you get hit one time and you're dead. As I got used to the enemy patterns, I was able to power up my weapons and even got a second weapon. The second weapon is kind of cool because you have two options. One goes straight in front of you like your normal weapon, and the other acts like a bomb and just drops off to kill enemies on the ground. These will power up along with your normal weapons. Once you've powered up quite a bit, the game of course becomes easier, and even a shooter idiot like myself can make it through a stage or two without much trouble. So yeah, the difficulty isn't constant, and either you're overpowered by your enemy or you crush everything in sight. And when you do die, you lose everything and have to build up again from scratch. So I've got to say that this game doesn't do anything to make the Genesis look like a powerhouse of a system. Just looking at the backgrounds here, I'm thinking to myself that I've seen better graphics on the NES at times than what I'm seeing here. The back of the box says, "Become too enthralled with the beautiful landscape and your daydreams could become a nightmare." That's false advertising, my friends, as there's nothing enthralling about this title. The game doesn't have any real personality, and nothing in the background is eye-popping or beautiful to look at. The enemies, while somewhat detailed, are just there. They all look like they're bored in this game. Hell, there was even a version of this game on the Famicom by Taito. Just look how nice this one looks. The backgrounds have just as much or more detail than the Genesis version, and all the sprites look like they're happy to be here getting killed by me. Back to the Genesis version, I'm just wondering if it would have killed Hoppy to add a layer or two of scrolling to the backgrounds. As I think about it, it would have made this game's appearance so much better, and I would have really felt like I was playing a 16-bit system instead of a late NES title. But they didn't, and so we have a game that just looks ugly. This has got to be one of the few Genesis shooters, if not the only one not to have any parallax scrolling whatsoever. To me, the most impressive part of this game is the title screen. When I first turned this game on years ago, I was like, look at this sweet title screen, this game is gonna rock! Sadly, no. Even the music is as bland as it can be, and it's all so forgettable. In fact, I can't remember a single melody. Ultimately, I'm really sad that this game turned out as bad as it did. It would have been a refreshing change from the usual space shooter to be able to play as an insect-sized robot killing other insects. Sure, it's playable, but why would you want to play something so unimpressive?
All right, we're back. And Dave, did you enjoy playing Bebe's Kids as much as I did?
I did, Joe. That game is so good. It's amazingly boring. Just horrible. Excellent. I hope I never have to play it again.
Well,
and how about you? You played Flicky
yes,
for the Sega Mega Drive.
Twice.
Oh, you lucky jerk.
Also for the Genesis. Awesome. Anyway, we've got more games to show you, so, well, let's just get back to the games. Virtua Racing on the Saturn really makes the system look like an underperformer. Granted, it's based on the Model 1 arcade game which used solid, untextured polygons, but the Saturn version here isn't even as good. First of all, look at the title screen. Seriously, it looks like it's been shared on Facebook 1,000 times. Look at those compression artifacts. Next, it honestly doesn't look too much better than the 32X version which preceded it. Here's the 32X version. Now, here's the Saturn version. Here's the 32X version again. Now here's the Saturn one. Now here's the Genesis version for absolutely no reason whatsoever. The PlayStation 2 version, 32X version again. And finally, back to the Saturn. Just kidding, I'm not done. Here's the 32X version again, just in case you missed it. Now Genesis, 32X, Saturn, Genesis, 32X, PS2 version, my cat, Genesis, Saturn, Genesis, 32X, Saturn, a donut, 32X, Genesis, PS2 version, 32X, and back to the Saturn. Now personally, I think the Saturn version should run at 60 frames per second, but often it runs even slower than 24 frames per second. And on top of that, it still has draw distance issues. If this was the only game ever released for the Saturn, you'd think that it was less powerful than the Atari Jaguar, and that's sad. As a game, it's okay. Let's face it, weak games aren't necessarily bad games. I like the arcade mode a lot, though the new backgrounds look weird. Fortunately, you can select the arcade backgrounds for a slightly more authentic experience. This game is tough as hell, though honestly I've never played it to be a superstar. I've always sucked at every single version of this game, but I still enjoy the hell out of it. Each track is also explained in glorious FMV videos.
Don't get sleepy though, because if you miss the next hairpin at the amusement park, you'll be having ale and bratwurst with the pit crew.
I kinda like bratwurst though. There's a Grand Prix mode that features some new tracks and you start out in a go-kart. This mode is extremely easy and honestly kinda boring, especially since you have to do so many laps. But I guess it does add some much needed meat to the game. There's not much music here, and the game has never really been known for its copious amounts of music, but what's here is good and most of it has been arranged pretty well. I'm wondering if this would have been better if Sega themselves had handled it instead of Time Warner Interactive, but by then Sega had moved on. If you can find it for cheap, seriously, it's worth picking up. Battle Monsters, also on the Saturn, definitely fits into this category. In this one-on-one fighter, you battle some monsters. Or at least you think you would. There are a few monsters here and there, I guess, but they're mostly not really monsters. You only have two attacks to worry about, a punch and a kick. Despite being able to jump by pressing up, the entire top row of buttons on the Saturn controller also make you jump. Not sure why they did that, but okay. Button C is for something called appeal, which I never really figured out. But come on, we're not here to dive into the depths of the gameplay and explain why it's a much better competitive fighter than Street Fighter III Third Strike. Mainly because it's not. We're here to show you how it makes the system it's running on look awful. And it kinda does. It uses the violent digitized fighter format popularized by Mortal Kombat and the constant screen zooming popularized by the Neo Geo. Your life bar is represented by a giant row of candles placed at the bottom of the screen. Since many stages have upper and lower areas, your character will become obscured by all of this, which really has no reason to be at the bottom of the screen. The action is pretty fast, and what hinders this is the fact that it's so framey. When it gets choppy, it becomes pretty tough to be accurate with your fighting. The digitized look is pretty poor, and it doesn't do the game any favors. I do like how there are multiple levels of parallax scrolling, but the graphic designers chose to make them all of similar colors, rendering the effect rather unimpressive. So is the game itself any fun? Well, I had a touch of fun with it to be honest, but it's far from outstanding. There are lots of stages, so at least that's good. But imagine being stuck with this game after spending $300 or $400 on the console.
Here's Fist of the North Star for the NES. Joe briefly mentioned this game about a year ago in our anime and manga games episode, so let me expand a bit and give you my 2 cents.
It's manga, Dave.
Yeah, whatever. Released in 1989, this is a beat-em-up for the system developed by Shui and published by Taxon. It's been a long time since I've played this game, and coming back to it for this episode, I'm reminded of how basic it is. You play as Ken, out to rescue the people of Central Imperial Capital from the bad and mean Emperor Heaven. Ken actually controls fairly well here. You've got the B button that kicks, the A button that punches, and pushing up is your jump button. Normally I really hate games where you jump by pressing up, but for me it's not bad here. Maybe it's because Ken can jump insanely high and I like that and I can control his jumps really well. You can power up Ken by collecting stars from fallen enemies. Collecting stars is both strange and very annoying at times. You have to collect 7 stars to power Ken up all the way. The first 4 stars that you collect have to be clear and the last 3 stars that you collect have to be solid. Once you collect 2 clear stars, Ken can do his auto punch and auto kick moves. After you collect the 4th clear star, your life bar refills. When you collect the 5th star, you can move a lot faster and you can shoot fireballs, but only if you have any of the boxes filled up in the bomb gauge. And of course, when you collect your 7th star, Ken's shirt gets ripped off and he becomes super tough and sexy. You won't see me kicking many enemies in this game, and that's for a reason. When you kick an enemy, they go flying off the screen and they don't leave any stars for you to power up. When you punch somebody, they stay in place and explode. A nice little feature here is the sound the enemy makes right before he dies. You can tell by the pitch of the sound if the enemy is going to drop a star or not, and this is nice. Each level has a mid-boss and a final boss. The mid-bosses are usually dispatched fairly quickly. The end bosses, of course, are tougher, but aren't really a problem until the 5th stage. This is where I started having a bit of trouble. Even with my super powered up form and a couple of fireballs, I died a few times. Then I realized the best method to fight them is the hit and run method. Punch or kick them and then jump away. This seemed to do the trick nicely. So as you can see by watching this footage, the game isn't very special. You don't need me to tell you that it's not pushing the NES at all. I mean, just take a look at each level. Each stage does have its unique enemy, but that's just it. One enemy. You fight hordes of the exact same guy all throughout the level. Then there's the backgrounds, which for the most part are just quite unappealing. The first 2 stages look okay, but after that it's like, oh my god, this is ugly. And finally there's the music, which I have mixed feelings about. At first I kind of like the melodies for each stage. They sound good and are all upbeat and they inspire me to kick ass. The problem is that they are so short. They are literally about 10 seconds long and they just loop. When a stage takes 7 to 10 minutes to get through, that's 42 to 60 times per stage that you're going to be hearing the same melody. At about 3 minutes in, it really just starts to grate on your ears. It feels like the developer just made this game to tie in with the popularity of the manga and didn't put much effort into it.
It's manga, Dave.
Yeah, whatever. In the end, I really don't hate this game, but I think it could have been better than what it turned out to be.
Traiga from Renovation is another embarrassing game for the Genesis. We covered this RPG not too terribly long ago in the Renovation episode, so I won't get into it much here. But just look how bad these graphics are, especially the scrolling. It couldn't scroll smoothly in any direction if the world depended on it. It's just sad, really. If this was the only game I ever played on the Genesis, I'd wonder how the system had enough technical proficiency to even stay powered on. I would have thought the system was weaker than the Atari 7800. I cannot believe that they released it like this.
It's Virtual Highlight on the Sega Saturn! It's like Highlight, only virtual! Oh no! The princess has been kidnapped by amazing CGI for undetermined purposes! That's all the story you need because you're such a badass you already know what to do! As you roam around this randomly generated graphical paradise, you encounter hordes of evil monsters intent on spreading their evil. You'll have none of that because you're on the side of righteousness and it's therefore your duty to destroy them. Destroy them. Destroy them. Call up the map at any time to determine where you need to spread justice next. X marks the spot. Investigate a mansion which is indiscernible from reality. Battle evil monsters with attacks that respond within a reasonable amount of time to your button presses. When battling the vampire, you'll need to wear a crucifix, just like when fighting vampires in real life. Amazing! You'd better be careful because red heat kills you in the amazing piece of environment that is Virtual Highlight! The power of the Sega Saturn is maximized beyond its potential with environments that move at up to 9 entire frames in a single second. Forget games in HD. Virtual Highlight's visuals have all the definition you'll ever need, with upwards of 100 different pixels on screen at any given time. Sorry, TNE2 supercomputer, your wimpy 33.8 petaflops can't compare to a Sega Saturn running Virtual Highlight. You make me sick. Mankind was never meant to wield such power, which is exactly why you need Virtual Highlight in your collection today. You think the dungeons in Skyrim are neat? Well, you can go to hell and burn because the dungeons in Virtual Highlight are so good that if you're not vomiting due to the amazing hyper-reality within 3 minutes, you're probably not even alive. Amazing ideas such as moving slower the more things you carry, enhance gameplay enjoyment into the stratosphere! Virtual Highlight is such an amazing experience, you'll wonder how civilization survived so long without it. So jump in, put on your blocky leather armor, and get virtualized today! Virtual Highlight!
Joe, a little OCD on the Virtual Highlight there, huh?
Virtual virtual highlight.
That's what I'm talking about.
So what did you guys think? What are some games that you believe make the console look less powerful than it is actually capable of?
Yeah, there's probably a ton of examples out there, so list them below. And maybe if you like this episode, maybe we'll do another one.
Yeah. In the meantime, thank you for watching GameSack.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, what's up?
Nothing. Hey, I just bought this new metal detector. I was wondering if I could, go over your yard and see if I could find anything valuable.
I don't think you're gonna find much in my yard, Dave.
This thing is pretty powerful, man. You'd be surprised.
Why not? Go knock yourself out, I guess.
Hey, sweet, man. Thanks.
Okay.
Joe! Hey, I got a signal. Come here. Oh, this is gonna be great. The quarter from 1984.
I think there's something else down there.
Your yard is awesome, dude.
Damn right it is.